James never thought the universe would embarrass him like this. He had signed up for the outpost duty expecting long nights of maintenance checks, stale food from ration packs, and endless boredom in the cold corridors of steel. What he did not expect was her. The first time he saw Lyra, she was sitting at one of the long metal tables in the mess hall. The Illyrians always looked out of place among humans, too graceful, too calm, too unshaken by the clumsy noise of human life. She was no different. Her silver skin caught the artificial light like polished metal, and her hair moved like strands of living starlight whenever she tilted her head. Her golden eyes seemed to glow faintly, as if they carried their own fire. James stood in line, holding his tray, pretending not to stare. He told himself to focus on the food, to keep his eyes down, to not think anything stupid. But his brain was a traitor. Her hair looks like liquid light. I wonder if it feels soft. That thought alone made his stomach twist in shame. But before he could bury it under a mountain of self-scolding, she looked up. Their eyes met across the noisy hall, and then it happened. She laughed, not a small laugh, not a polite smile, a real laugh, clear and ringing, like bells in the middle of steel and concrete. James nearly dropped his tray. Heat rushed to his face. He wanted to vanish into the floor. She couldn't possibly have known what he was thinking. Could she? But the way she smiled at him, the way her eyes softened like she had just heard the funniest secret in the galaxy, it told him everything. When he finally sat down, she didn't stay away. Instead, she rose from her table, walked with quiet, confident steps, and stopped right across from him. James froze with a spoon halfway to his mouth. "Why did you think that about my hair?" she asked, her voice calm but edged with amusement. James choked on his food. He coughed so hard that water spilled from his cup and his face burned hotter than the ship's reactor. He opened his mouth to deny it, to protest, but no words came out. Because she was right. He had thought exactly that. Her laughter bubbled again, softer this time, like she was trying not to make him collapse entirely. "Do not be afraid," she said, her accent lilting in a way that made every word sound like a note of music. "I hear thoughts easily. Yours. They are very loud." James wanted to crawl out of his skin. A telepath. Of course. The Illyrians were known for their mind sense, their ability to hear the thoughts of others when they chose to. He had read about it in training, but never imagined it would feel so invasive. And yet, looking at her, he didn't see cruelty in her expression. She wasn't mocking him, wasn't sneering at his clumsy human mind. She looked delighted. "I am Lyra," she said after a pause, sitting down across from him without asking. "And you are?" He managed to stammer his name, though it felt like even that came out wrong. James. James, she repeated, tasting the sound. Then she tilted her head, studying him with curious golden eyes. He could feel her brushing lightly at the edge of his thoughts, not diving in but hovering there, like someone waiting to be invited through a door. And against all logic, against his own desperate wish to hide, he let her. In that moment, James understood something terrifying. She was going to see things he had never dared say aloud. She was going to hear the stray thoughts, the nervous doubts, the embarrassing daydreams. And she was going to laugh, not in cruelty, not in judgment, but in a way that made it impossible to run. That night, lying in his bunk, James kept replaying the sound of her laughter in his head. It should have felt humiliating. It should have felt unbearable. But instead it echoed inside him like a melody he couldn't forget. And he realized with dread and wonder that this was only the beginning. James tried to avoid her, but it was impossible. Lyra seemed to appear wherever he went. At first he told himself it was coincidence. Maybe the mess hall, the corridors, the observation deck. Surely humans and Illyrians moved through the same spaces enough that running into each other was normal. But it wasn't coincidence. He knew it wasn't. Every time she was near, he could feel her attention, subtle and probing, like sunlight brushing over skin. And every time the same thing happened. She read his thoughts. She laughed. Not mockingly, but with delight, as if the little embarrassments of his mind were treasures meant to be seen. He hated it. And yet, part of him couldn't help noticing how alive it made him feel. He tried to focus on his work. Maintenance reports, inventory lists, hull inspections. He thought boring thoughts. Check the coolant levels. Repaint the storage bay. Don't think about her. But the harder he tried, the more vivid his thoughts became. She has the most beautiful smile. Does her laugh always feel like sunlight in winter? What does her skin smell like? I wonder if her hair is really soft. And every time one of these thoughts appeared, she laughed. Sometimes quietly, sometimes openly, like a melody in the sterile hum of the outpost. One evening, James found himself on the observation deck, staring at the artificial stars projected against the dome ceiling. He hoped the illusion of space would distract him, that the infinite void might quiet his mind. But of course she was already there, gliding silently toward him. Lost in thought again, she asked, her voice gentle, teasing like a breeze brushing over leaves. He groaned. I was just looking at the stars. She smiled knowingly. Yes. And thinking about me. Heat flared in his chest, and he turned to avoid her gaze. He wanted to vanish, to pretend he had never thought any of the embarrassing things that had crossed his mind. But it was too late. She had heard it all. She always did. Why do you laugh at me? He finally demanded, his voice cracking slightly. I don't understand. She tilted her head, the glow in her golden eyes softening. Because you cannot hide. Your mind is open. Your heart is loud. It is honest. It is refreshing. James froze. Honest? He had never considered his thoughts honest. They were messy, awkward, full of fear, desire, and longing. And yet she called them refreshing. That simple word struck something in him. Maybe she didn't see his mind as a place to ridicule him. Maybe she liked the chaos of his thoughts, but liking them didn't stop the embarrassment. Each memory of her laughter felt like a mirror held up to his soul. Every tiny, silly thought was exposed. Every fleeting fantasy, every clumsy daydream about holding her hand or imagining her smile was laid bare. And yet, he could not stop thinking about her. Not when she laughed, not when she smiled, not when her presence made the cold, metallic corridors of the outpost feel like home. Do you ever not hear me? He asked one night, desperation creeping into his voice. She paused, considering. Not if you think of me, she said softly. Your mind will always bring me near. And I enjoy that. He wanted to argue, to tell her that enjoyment was different from intrusion, but no words came. Instead, he felt the impossible truth. He was falling for her, and she knew it. She always knew it. James hated that she could see him so clearly, yet a small, reluctant part of him loved it, because in a universe so vast and lonely, to have someone see you, truly see you, was terrifying, yes, but also beautiful beyond measure. That night, as he lay in his bunk staring at the ceiling, he realized something frightening. She had become a mirror he could not avoid. A mirror that reflected not just his thoughts, but his heart, and the reflection was more alive, more human, more him than he had ever been before. And though he wanted to hide, to run, to bury himself in the comfort of ignorance, he knew deep down that he could never do it. Lyra had already touched his mind, and now she had touched his soul. James thought he could escape her. He thought that if he kept his mind busy, avoided the mess hall, and took extra night shifts, he could hide from the relentless way Lyra seemed to find him. He was wrong. Distance did nothing. The moment he shut his eyes, he could see her, floating in the glow of the observation dome, leaning casually against a railing, golden eyes like molten fire, smile soft and knowing. Even when she wasn't physically near, her presence lingered in his thoughts. He told himself to focus on work. He checked life support systems, scanned hull integrity, recalibrated sensors, all while muttering mental reminders to ignore her. But his mind betrayed him. He imagined her laughing at the smallest of his embarrassing thoughts, imagining her hand brushing his, imagining her voice whispering his name in the quiet of the ship. And every time he tried to suppress it, her laughter returned. Soft, musical, like chimes in the wind. Not cruel, never cruel. But it pierced him, carved him open, made him wonder if he would ever have privacy again. One night, as he was repairing a damaged conduit in the lower decks, he felt it, a presence warm and gentle like a sunbeam in the cold metal corridors. He froze, his hands shook, tools clattering to the floor. "James," a voice whispered, calm, soft. He turned. There she was, gliding through the dim lights of the maintenance bay, her silver skin almost glowing against the shadows. "Why do you hide from me?" she asked. Her golden eyes scanned him like she could read his soul through the reinforced plating of his uniform. I can't." James stumbled over his words. How could he explain that every time she looked at him, every time she laughed at his thoughts, his heart felt like it might break? How could he explain that he wanted her near, yet feared her seeing everything he thought? "You think too much," she said softly. But her voice was not scolding. It was understanding. "I only want to be near you, James. You do not need to hide." He wanted to argue. He wanted to tell her that humans need walls, need space, need secrets. But she had already seen him. Every clumsy daydream, every private longing, every embarrassing thought. She had watched his heart unfold like pages of a book he didn't dare open. And he could no longer hide from it. I'm afraid," he admitted, voice trembling. "Afraid that if I let you in and you'll see how weak I really am." Her golden eyes softened, glowing in the dim light. "Weak?" she whispered. "No, human is not weak. You feel deeply. You care. You fear. That is what makes you strong. That is what makes you alive." Her words washed over him, warm and strange. For the first time he felt seen, not as a collection of thoughts but as a person, messy and real. James wanted to reach out, to touch her hand, to hold her close. But something inside him hesitated. Fear still lingered like a shadow. What if? She laughed at him again, not softly this time, but in mockery. What if she left, disappointed by how human he was? Lyra stepped closer, sensing his doubt. "Do not hide from your own heart," she said gently. "You are brave because you feel, even when it frightens you." And in that moment something inside James cracked. The walls he had built around his feelings, the careful control he had tried to maintain, began to crumble. He realized that he could not avoid her presence. He could not avoid her laughter, or the way she made him feel like the universe had somehow decided to notice him, specifically him in all its vast emptiness. For the first time he admitted it to himself. He wanted her. Not just near him, not just laughing at his thoughts, but with him as close as the stars themselves. But desire brought its own fear. Every thought of closeness, every imagined touch, made him vulnerable in ways he was not sure he could survive. And yet he could not stop thinking about her, not even if he wanted to. That night, lying in his bunk, James stared at the ceiling, haunted by the sound of her laughter echoing in his mind. It was no longer just amusement. It was a promise that he could not escape, and perhaps that he did not want to. He realized with both dread and longing that his life had changed. Lyra had entered it, and she would not leave. She had cracked his walls, laid bare his heart, and whether he was ready or not, he would never be the same again. And for the first time, James did not try to hide. After that night on the observation deck, something changed between James and Lyra. The constant laughter that had once made him anxious softened. It no longer pierced him like a sudden flare of light. Instead, it became a gentle warmth, a presence that lingered in the edges of his thoughts. Somehow, the sound reminded him that he was alive, and that he was not alone. They began to talk, More slowly, carefully, in moments that felt stolen from the vast emptiness of the outpost. She asked about Earth, about rain falling softly on rooftops, about oceans that stretched endlessly under blue skies. James told her stories, stumbling over words, laughing nervously when he realized how small and ordinary his life had seemed to a being from a world so far away. Lyra listened with golden eyes wide and attentive. "I want to know everything," she said once, her voice soft but insistent. "Your world, your thoughts, the little things you do when no one is watching. Humans. You are curious creatures, honest, even when you try to hide it. And that is beautiful." James felt his chest tighten. No one had ever looked at him like that before. Not a friend, not a family member, not anyone. She saw him, the awkward, messy, clumsy, anxious human he was, and instead of stepping back, she leaned in closer. But alongside that wonder was fear. Fear that he was exposing himself too much, that one day she would grow tired of his weaknesses, that her laughter might return in judgment rather than joy, and fear that he was falling for her too quickly, too deeply. One evening, they found themselves alone in the observation dome. The artificial stars shimmered overhead, painting the room with a quiet light that made the world outside feel impossibly far away. Lyra leaned against the railing, golden eyes reflecting the stars. "I don't know how to do this," James said quietly, voice shaking. He could barely meet her gaze. "Every time you're near, I feel exposed. Every thought, every feeling. It's like you can see everything, and I don't know how to hide it. I don't even want to hide it anymore." She tilted her head, studying him. "Then don't," she said simply, her words soft but firm. "Do not hide. There is nothing wrong with what you feel. There is nothing wrong with being human." James swallowed hard. His heart thumped so loudly it felt like it would burst. From his chest, he wanted to reach out to touch her hand, to close the space between them that felt impossibly wide. But fear held him back. Fear and self-doubt. "I'm afraid," he admitted finally, voice barely above a whisper. "Afraid that if I let you in, if I let you see all of me, you'll leave. Or think I'm not enough." Her expression softened. She stepped closer, the faint silver glow of her skin reflecting in the dome lights. "James," she said gently, "I do not want you to be anyone else. I want you. Every part of you, even the messy human parts. That is why I came to you. That is why I laugh, why I stay. Because you are real. And real is precious." Tears pricked his eyes, the raw honesty of her words breaking through the fear he had carried for so long. For the first time, he felt seen in a way that was deeper than words, deeper than gestures, deeper than any mask he had ever worn. And for the first time, he felt a glimmer of courage, not the courage of strength or skill, but the courage to be vulnerable, to admit the truth of his heart even if it frightened him. I want to try," he said, finally looking at her. "I want to be near you. I want this." His hands trembled as he reached toward her, unsure if she would accept it. Lyra smiled, a soft, luminous smile that made his chest ache. She placed her hand over his and warmth flowed through him, a quiet promise that she would not turn away. "You are brave," she whispered, "because you let yourself feel, even when it scares you. That is extraordinary, James. That is why I am here." And in that moment, James realized that fear could coexist with hope, that vulnerability could coexist with strength, and that the universe, in all its infinite vastness, had somehow brought him to this very moment, standing with a being who laughed at his embarrassing thoughts and loved him anyway. For the first time, he allowed himself to hope that perhaps, just perhaps, he could survive the universe, and even thrive, in her presence. For days after the confession, James and Lyra felt closer than ever. Their walks through the corridors became longer, their conversations deeper, and every moment together carried the quiet electricity of something unspoken, yet understood. James began to feel a warmth he had never known, a sense of belonging in a universe that had always seemed cold and vast. But the universe rarely allows happiness without challenge. Whispers began to reach Lyra first. Other Illyrians, her peers, watched her with quiet suspicion. "You spend too much time with a human," one of them said one evening, eyes narrowing. "They will never understand you. You tie yourself to weakness." At first, Lyra brushed it off, smiling faintly, telling herself their words did not matter. She had chosen James, and that was enough. But humans were fragile in ways her kind could not always understand, and she began to notice that James was more distant than usual. James had overheard some of the whispers himself. The words echoed in his mind, sharp and accusing. Weakness. Never understand. Tie yourself to him. He felt a knot in his stomach that refused to untangle. Suddenly, the joy he had felt in Lyra's presence was tinged with fear, shame, and doubt. He avoided her touch, avoided her eyes, and walked the corridors with shoulders hunched, hoping she would not notice the change. He told himself it was for her that he could not allow her to be tied to someone like him, someone so ordinary and human. But beneath the surface he was racked with loneliness. The outpost felt emptier than ever. Every corridor longer, every star in the observation dome colder. Lyra noticed immediately. She found him at the observation deck one night, standing alone under the projection of the stars. His back was stiff, his posture guarded. Her golden eyes softened with concern. "You doubt yourself again," she said, a trace of hurt breaking through her usual calm. James swallowed hard, unable to meet her gaze. I don't want to hold you back," he muttered. "Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not enough for you. Maybe I'm just human." Lyra's face changed. Her usual warmth was replaced with a sharp edge, not anger but intensity that made him flinch. "Do not tell me what I should feel," she said, voice trembling with emotion. "Do not decide for me what is enough. You are human, and that is why I chose you. Not in spite of it, but because of it." James wanted to explain, to tell her that his distance came from love, from fear of losing her, from a desperate wish to protect her from himself. But the words caught in his throat. The more he tried, the more helpless he felt. He wanted to vanish, to disappear, to make the pain of being human less obvious. For the first time, the space between them felt insurmountable. Their hands hovered, not touching, as if any movement would shatter fragile trust. Her golden eyes searched his, pleading for him to believe her, and he felt tears sting his own eyes. I don't know how to fix this," James admitted finally, voice breaking. "I don't know if I'm strong enough." Lyra stepped closer, closing the distance but keeping a careful respect for his walls. Strength is not about never doubting. Strength is about feeling, even when it scares you. That is why I am here. That is why I stayed. You are strong, James, even when you think you are not. The words sank deep into him, but the doubt did not vanish immediately. It would take time to rebuild the bridge he had broken between them, with his own fear. Yet even as his chest tightened with shame, he felt a flicker of hope. She had not left. She had not given up. She still chose him, even in the shadow of his fear. James realized that love, especially across two worlds so different, would never be easy. But maybe, just maybe, it was worth it. Maybe the risk of vulnerability, the fear of judgment, and the exposure of every hidden thought could be the very thing that made them human, and strangely, divine in the eyes of someone who could see their souls. That night, James lay in his bunk staring at the dim lights above, thinking of her laughter. Not the mocking laughter that had first terrified him, but the gentle, soft sound that had drawn him in and held him close. And he made a silent promise. He would not let fear drive her away. He would find the courage to be himself, messy, human, and vulnerable, because she had chosen him. And he could not, would not, choose anything less. Days passed slowly after the rift, each one stretching longer than the last. James found it almost unbearable to be in the outpost without Lyra by his side. The corridors felt empty, the humming machines distant and cold, the artificial stars above like a silent reminder of her absence. He realized something he had tried to ignore. Avoiding her had not solved anything. It had only made the ache in his chest stronger. He thought about all the little moments that had made her presence irresistible, the warmth of her laughter, the way her golden eyes seemed to see straight into his heart, the softness in her voice when she asked about Earth, when she listened to his awkward stories. Those moments had become threads woven into his life, threads he could no longer untangle. James knew he had a choice to make. He could continue to let fear control him, pretend he did not care, keep the walls around his heart tall and unyielding. Or he could take the leap, trust that Lyra truly wanted him, and allow himself to be vulnerable, fully, honestly, without reservation. He took a deep breath, gripping the railing of the observation deck as he looked out over the projection of stars. Each one seemed to whisper to him, urging him to be brave, to step forward. He could hear her laughter in his mind, gentle and warm, calling him closer even when she was not there. And he realized that he could not ignore it any longer. That night, he sought her out. The corridors were quiet, empty, except for the soft hum of the outpost. And then he saw her standing beneath the observation dome, bathed in the soft light of the artificial stars. Her golden eyes turned toward him, wide with concern and hope. He began, unsure of where the words would lead. I have been afraid of being human, afraid of not being enough. But I cannot stay away from you anymore. I cannot hide from what I feel. Lyra's expression softened. She stepped closer, the silver of her skin glowing faintly in the dome's light. James, she said softly, there is nothing to fear. Your humanity. It is the reason I chose you. It is the reason I stay. You do not have to pretend or hide or be anything other than yourself. He swallowed, feeling tears prick at the corners of his eyes. I want to try. I want to be with you, to share everything. My thoughts, my fears, my dreams, even the embarrassing ones. Her golden eyes sparkled as she laughed softly. Not the laughter that had once embarrassed him, but a gentle, joyous sound that wrapped around his heart and eased the tightness he had carried for weeks. Then read me now, she whispered. See me as I am. Let yourself in, James. Do not hold back. He closed his eyes and allowed her to enter his mind, no longer afraid of exposure. Every thought, every hidden feeling, every awkward, silly daydream spilled out before her. And instead of laughing in mockery, she smiled, warmth radiating through him like sunlight breaking through clouds. You are human, she said softly, tracing her fingers through the air as if touching his soul. And that is why I love you, not in spite of it, because of it. James opened his eyes, meeting her gaze, and he felt a weight lift from his chest. The fear, the doubt, the shame, all of it seemed smaller now, insignificant compared to the bond that had formed between them. He realized that true courage was not in hiding from vulnerability, but in embracing it fully, with someone who saw and accepted every part of you, and so he made his choice. He would not let fear dictate his life. He would not turn away from the connection he had been given. He would step into the unknown hand in hand with Lyra, trusting that their worlds, though different, could meet in the space between hearts. For the first time in his life, James felt entirely seen and entirely safe. He reached for her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers, and in that simple gesture they both knew, nothing could take this away. Not distance, not doubt, not the whispers of others. They had chosen each other, fully and without hesitation, and, in that moment beneath the artificial stars, James understood something profound. Love did not demand perfection, it demanded courage. Courage to feel, courage to trust, and courage to step forward, even when the universe seemed too vast and their worlds too different. And he was ready. The observation dome was quiet, filled only with the soft hum of the outpost and the endless, projection of stars. James and Lyra stood together, hands intertwined, each feeling the warmth of the other's presence. For the first time, the fear that had haunted James for weeks was gone, replaced by something stronger: hope, trust, and the unshakable certainty that they had chosen each other. James took a deep breath, his chest still tight from the weeks of doubt, shame, and distance. I want to thank you," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "For staying, for laughing, for seeing me when no one else could." Lyra tilted her head, her golden eyes glowing in the soft light. "You do not need to thank me," she said. "You are human, and that is enough. Everything you are, all the fear, all the awkwardness, all the things you tried to hide, that is what drew me to you. That is what makes you precious." James smiled a little awkwardly, feeling a warmth spread through him that had nothing to do with the dome's artificial lights. "I used to be afraid," he admitted. "Afraid that my thoughts, my feelings, my everything would push you away. But now, I understand. You were never afraid of me. You were waiting for me to believe in myself." Her laugh, soft and musical, echoed through the dome. Not the teasing laughter that had once made him blush with embarrassment, but a bright ringing sound filled with joy and love. It was the laughter that had first drawn him to her, and now it felt like home. "You humans," she said gently, her voice warm. "Always so afraid of what makes you precious. You hide, you doubt, you think your feelings are too much, and yet you have the strength to open your heart fully. That is why I am here, James, that is why I stay." James looked at her, his throat tight with emotion. "And I want to stay too," he whispered. "With you. No walls, no hiding, no fear. Just us." Lyra's smile widened, and she stepped closer, her hand brushing against his cheek. The golden warmth of her eyes reflected in his, and for the first time, he did not feel exposed. He felt safe, seen, and loved. "You are brave," she said softly, "because you dared to let me in. And I choose you, James. Every thought, every feeling, every embarrassing secret. I choose all of it, because it is you. And you are extraordinary to me." Tears filled his eyes, but this time they were not tears of fear or shame. They were tears of relief, of joy, of the overwhelming realization that someone could truly see him and still love him. Someone could read the chaotic, messy human heart and find beauty there. James pulled her close, holding her gently but firmly, and she leaned into him, her warmth filling the empty spaces he had carried for so long. He felt her laughter vibrate, softly against his chest, a sound that soothed every lingering doubt. And in that laughter he found something more than joy. He found courage. Courage to be human, to be vulnerable, to love fully, and to trust that the connection they shared was strong enough to survive anything the universe could throw at them. For the first time, he let himself truly smile, letting go of all the fear, all the self-doubt, all the walls he had built around his heart. Lyra laughed again, and this time it felt like the universe itself was laughing with them, celebrating the impossible bridge between two worlds. "I am yours," he whispered, voice trembling. "And you are mine." She nodded, her golden eyes glimmering with warmth and joy. "Always," she said. "Always, James." And beneath the artificial stars, with the endless void of space stretching beyond the dome, James understood something profound. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was brave, messy, and imperfect, and that was exactly what made it extraordinary.